Welcome back, Midnight Readers. Tonight we're jumping right back into the reading of Once Upon a Fall. This is the second continuation of the reading. If you've missed the last 2 episodes, go back and watch those so you know where we're at. And yeah, so far we're at the point where Shelly, a California girl, has embarked on a road trip with her best friend, his brother, and his brother's friend. They're staying with that brother's friend's cousin, who's a really nice guy, or so she thinks. And they've gone on their paranormal investigation. And Shelly's starting to wonder if there might be a little bit more paranormal going on than she had originally thought she was signing up for. So things are definitely taking a turn and shifting. And yeah. So without further ado, let's jump right back in and see what's happening. Here we go. Chapter 9. On the way home, Ben showed us some cool pictures he had taken. The contrast of the moody sky behind the old buildings made for some great shots. There was a graveyard in one that gave off a spooky sort of feel. Hey, that reminds me. Do you guys know who Millie DePaul is? I asked, pressing my finger to my lips when Blake shot me a curious glance. As I directed my stare back to the guys in the front seat, my eyes were drawn to the rearview mirror. The look Nick shot me was bone-chilling. How did you come to learn that name? He questioned through gritted teeth. Something seemed off, so I decided to stretch the truth a bit to see what kind of response it would prompt. Oh, some ladies were talking about poor Millie, and the new lead the police had. I just assumed, based on what they were saying, that she had been one of the many unsolved cases that you were telling us about. I was just wondering if you knew anything about her, that's all. He was silent for a moment before answering. I guess there's no point in keeping it from you. Yes, I knew her, through Noah. They had gone to school together, and even though she was a couple of years younger, they shared a few mutual friends. We all hung out a few times last summer. When I was visiting, I had no idea she went missing, though. Noah would probably know more about that one than me. Come to think of it, that might explain why he acted strange when I mentioned her name. Gotcha, I said, returning to staring out my window. I wasn't fully sure I bought his story. I might be crazy, but his words and his mannerisms while saying them didn't seem to align. I mean, he had almost sounded irritated when I brought her up at first. And then, when he stated that he hadn't been aware that she had been missing, his voice had been void of any emotion. There definitely wasn't any sign of shock or concern. This was far from a typical reaction. However, all of this could have been absolutely nothing, as Nick was proving to be a bit of an odd guy. Once back, we could see the shed door propped open. Hey, why don't you go tell Noah we're back? Nick said, nodding to the shed. Okay. As I peeked inside, I could hear metal clanking. There were 2, what I believed to be, animal stalls, on each side of the walkway as I entered. Noah? I called out. Getting no response, I continued further in. I could see Noah now. His back was to me, and he was cleaning something at the sink in the back. Just as I called out his name again, a red substance in the last stall caught my eye. It was definitely blood, and not just a little bit. It had completely saturated the hay. As Noah turned around, a large scalpel, as well as another blood-covered tool, were revealed. Noah had gloves on and was in the process of washing the blood off. Immediately, my mind snapped back to what Nick had said about Noah knowing Millie, the missing girl, and their interactions the summer she had gone missing. Hey, he said with a smile. Hi. Nick asked me to come let you know that we're back, I said, starting to back away slowly. As he turned back around to turn off the water and take off his gloves, I used this opportunity to exit without him seeing. I quickened my pace once outside of the shed, only to be stopped by a hand on my shoulder a second later. Hey, so how was it? Noah asked with a smile that quickly faded upon seeing the look on my face. Hey, what's wrong? Nothing. Shelly, come on. You know you could talk to me. Did someone do something to upset you? My eyes immediately darted to the dry drop of blood on his sleeve. Following my gaze, he looked down at his shirt. Oh, sorry, does blood bother you? I meant to have it all cleaned up before you got back, but the delivery took longer than expected. I cocked my head to the side, studying his face. What on earth was he talking about? The delivery? Yeah. Remember, I told you my neighbor was stopping by. I nodded. Miss Mason thought her dog was sick and she asked me to check her out. Turns out she was just in labor. Oh! I sighed with relief. Wait, what did you think was going on? He questioned with an intense gaze. I don't know, I said, feeling embarrassed that those thoughts had even crossed my mind. Shelly, you do know you're safe with me, right? I wasn't fully sure that I was, but I nodded nevertheless. Okay, then what's up? Why do you look so nervous? God, it must have been written all over my face. But how was I supposed to ask him about Millie, after what had just transpired with the little blood incident? He'd, for sure, feel as though I was accusing him of being involved. I looked down, searching for the right thing to say. Hey, look, I get that there's a lot to take in around here, much of which can feel unsettling. Trust me, I know. I've lived it. But I want you to feel comfortable. So if there's something that you have questions about, I want you to ask. Okay. It's about the girl that went missing. Oh, you mean Nancy? What do you want to know? I swallowed hard. No, not Nancy. Millie. His eyes grew wide. Let's go someplace else and talk, he said, leading me further away from the house. I felt my heart pounding, not knowing what to expect. He led me to a lush tree grove not too far away. The cute hanging chairs positioned in a semicircle around the fire pit immediately caught my eye. Walking past them, we came to sit on a bench at the far side of the grove. Under other circumstances, I may have actually enjoyed spending this time in this cute camp-like spot. Okay, this should be good. What exactly do you want to know? He said, glancing around. Well, I saw an article about her in town today and was curious. When I asked Nick about her, he said that he'd only met her briefly, through you. He explained that he wasn't even aware that she had gone missing, and told me that I should be asking you instead. He said that, huh? I don't know what he's up to, but all I can offer is what I know to be the truth. A few of us, who had all gone to school together, decided it'd be fun to meet and catch up. One of my buddies, who was close with Millie, and a couple of her friends, had decided on the location. It was a spot that they got together at a lot. Nick had been in town for the summer, and had seen Millie a couple of times prior to this. It was apparent that he was starting to have a thing for her, so when he asked if he could tag along, I didn't see the harm. After dinner, we all went our separate ways. Nick had headed out with me at first, however, just as we made it to the car, decided that he was going to go try and catch up with Millie and see if he could walk her home. He got home a few hours later. When I asked him how it had gone, he said that he never found her and went somewhere to smoke marijuana instead. He smelled like it, and was clearly not in his right mind at the time. So I had no reason to question any of it. 2 days later, when we saw a police car pulling up the drive. I probably shouldn't say any more, Noah said, pausing mid-sentence. Please finish. I have something to tell you, too, after you do. I encouraged, dying to know what he was leaving out. Okay, but you have to promise you won't repeat a word of what I'm going to tell you. I promise. Okay, so, 2 days later, when the police car came driving up, Nick asked me not to say anything about his parting ways. He begged that I stuck with the story that we had gone home together. He said he didn't want anyone to know that he had been smoking, and didn't want fingers falsely pointed at him. I agreed. I understood. His choices that night, although harmless, would have been enough to cause suspicion. I didn't want him to go through the same ridicule I had experienced regarding Nancy. Now, I really didn't know what to think. Which of them had been telling the truth? Chapter 10. You said you had something to tell me? Oh, yes. Okay. So I know how this is going to sound, and am well aware that no one seemed to believe me when I said that I had seen a vanishing girl after the investigation. However, after seeing her picture in the paper, I know that I'm not crazy. I'm absolutely positive Millie was the girl I saw when I turned onto the dirt road yesterday. I can't shake the feeling that there was something she wanted me to see. I was scared to look at him. I knew what he must be thinking. Shock coursed through me as he grabbed my hand and looked into my eyes. Now, I don't know what you did or didn't see, but I do know that you seem to believe everything that you just told me. Would it make you feel better if we went and checked out the spot you thought you saw her? He asked compassionately. After thinking about it for a moment, I nodded. Yes, I think that would put my mind at ease. But Noah, can we keep this between us? I could only imagine what the guys would think. Sure, it'll be our little secret. Let me go grab the keys to the truck and we can head out. Relief and anxiety, opposite emotions, played tug-of-war within me as we drew closer to the spot. It was hard to explain, but as badly as I wanted to find some answers, a part of me was hoping we didn't find anything out here amongst the trees. Chills ran down my spine as Noah opened my door, and I hopped out into the crisp air. We weaved in and out of the trees, checking high and low for what felt like forever. Just as we were about to call it quits, I felt something under my shoe, hidden in the grassy floor. As I brushed the brightly colored leaves away, something shiny sparkled in the sun's rays, which had just made their debut from the slowly parting clouds that the storm had left in its wake. It felt as though my heart stopped beating briefly, before switching to double time. As it thumped wildly in my chest, I reluctantly picked up the shiny silver bracelet. It was identical to the one that had been on my dresser. The very one Millie had been wearing in the picture in the paper. Noah! I gasped. What's that? He questioned. Holding it up, I explained that not only was it identical to the one that had mysteriously appeared in my room, but Millie had been wearing the same one in the paper as well. He stared at it intently. "Are you sure that this is the same one you saw in the dresser? Because if it's not, that means it could have been out here for God knows how long. Which could mean..." "Well, I mean, it sure looks like the one that had been on my dresser. However, the one that had been on my dresser seemed to have vanished right after I'd left the room." He raised a brow. "I know, I'm confused too," I said under my breath. "Okay, stay right here, and don't lose the spot," he said, heading back to the truck. It was less than a minute before I saw him returning with a shovel in hand. As the shovel broke through the grassy ground, my eyes stayed glued to the deepening hole. We kept at it for close to an hour. However, it was to no avail. We now stood above the hole that must have been close to 5 feet deep. We both seemed to breathe a sigh of relief as we looked at one another. "Well, I guess that's a good thing," he muttered, beginning to fill the hole back in. I stared at the bracelet as we drove back to the house. "What do we do about this?" I questioned. "Well, I guess we should return it to the police." I nodded. However, the more I thought about it, I wasn't so sure that that was the right choice. "Are you sure that's what you want to do? I mean, given everything you already went through with Nancy, this would give them reason to look at you again. And with this being the second situation of the sort, it..." Just then he pulled the truck over and looked me in the eye. "Okay, Shelly, what would you have me do?" I could see it written all over his face. "Well, I guess I could hold on to it for you, for now, and just play dumb. I found it out on a walk and had no idea that there was any relation to the missing person." I shrugged. He cocked his head to the side. "You'd really do that for me?" I nodded. "Yeah, I don't think you've done anything wrong. I don't think you deserve any more ridicule for something you didn't do." I could have sworn I saw tears glistening in his eyes as he leaned over and hugged me. I hugged him back. I realized just how much I had been needing a hug as well. We stayed like that for a while before continuing back to the house. Chapter 11. As we pulled up to the house, we were met by questioning stares from both Ben and Blake. "What have you two been up to?" Ben teased. "Oh, Noah was nice enough to give me a little driving tour of the property. Thanks again," I said, turning to Noah in an attempt to sell the story. "Not a problem. Let me know if either of you guys would like one," Noah replied, casting his gaze back to the guys. "Okay, I'm gonna run in and get cleaned up. See you guys for dinner." "Me too," Noah chimed in, following behind me. He gave me a wink as he continued towards the stairs. I remained just inside the front door, steadying myself on the wall as I slipped off my shoes. Just then, I heard Blake say something to Ben. Although I couldn't quite make out the words, I could tell that Blake sounded upset. A mixture of worry and curiosity surged through me. It was rare to hear Blake like this. What was wrong? I knew I probably shouldn't, but a big part of me felt the need to go make sure he was alright. I mean, whether he was currently being an ass or not, he was still my best friend, the one person I cared most about in the world. A second later, Ben could be heard yelling after him. "Just tell her then! Come on! Where are you going? It's getting dark and there's nothing for miles!" That was it. I couldn't hold back any longer. I quickly slipped my shoes back on and hurried out onto the porch. "What's going on?" "Blake's a bit upset," Ben said, nodding towards Blake, who was starting to walk off down the path. I nodded and began to jog after him. "Hey, where are you going?" "Just go back to the house," he replied coldly. "Blake, what's wrong?" When he didn't answer, I quickly stepped in front of him, blocking his path. He refused to look at me, turning his head in the other direction. "Blake, talk to me. How am I supposed to help make it better if you keep refusing to let me in?" "You can't make it better," he blurted out. The sting of his harsh tone left me stunned momentarily. However, when he turned to walk away, I knew what needed to be done. I ran in front of him once again, this time wrapping him in a tight embrace. Standing on my tippy toes, I whispered in his ear, "Yes, I can, and you know it. That's part of what always made us perfect for each other. We always have been able to cheer each other up." He stayed still in my arms, not pulling away for a few moments, yet refused to hug me back. "Come on. Will you just come back to the house? You don't have to be around me if you really don't want to. But I'm not willing to let you go wandering out here alone in the dark. There's definitely something strange going on around here, and I'm not willing to let something happen to the most important person in my life, even if he has been acting like a jerk." With that, he began heading back towards the house. "Oh good, did you guys work things out?" Ben questioned as I came to stand next to him, while Blake continued inside. I furrowed my brow, realizing what he had said. "Work things out? Wait, does that mean you know why he's been acting like this?" I questioned. I'm guessing that means he didn't talk to you yet. Shelly, it's really not my place to say. I will tell you this, though. I get where he's coming from and why he might be hesitant to talk to you about it. Just keep being there for him, like you always are, and I'm sure he'll come around soon. Just some food for thought. Try to imagine how it might be in his shoes. Imagine that the tables were turned, and he was the only guy on this trip. Not only that, but imagine that he seemed to be getting kind of close to one of the other girls, and kept going off alone with her. Think about how that might make you feel. Oh, hold on. Are you saying that... Sorry, not my place to say anything else, Ben said before disappearing back into the house. Was Ben trying to tell me that Blake was jealous? If so, what was he jealous of? Noah was nice, but a friendship with him, or anyone else for that matter, would never compare to what Blake and I have. Wait, Ben had said to imagine if the tables were turned and it was a group of girls. Why would that have made a difference unless he meant that Blake was jealous in a romantic sense? That would actually explain a lot of his behavior since we got here. But this is Blake that we're talking about. If you felt that way, I would have known by now, right? Had I missed the signs? I mean, now that I think about it, we pretty much do everything a married couple does, from cooking and cleaning and cuddling together, to always supporting and surprising one another. He constantly compliments me and tells me how pretty he thinks I am. I tease him about being handsome too, but I'm pretty sure he knows that I actually mean it. We definitely know how to push each other's buttons, but also are always able to cheer one another up, regardless of what the problem may be. My God, I could only imagine how I would have felt if the tables had actually been turned. It would definitely sting. I suppose I was happy enough with what we had all this time, that risking losing it by pushing him for more just hadn't even been a thought I was willing to entertain. Had this been the case for him too? If it was, I fully understood why he didn't want to bring it up. It meant risking losing everything. If only he would give me a sign that this was the case, I wouldn't hesitate to reassure him that he wasn't alone in this. As I went in and showered, I couldn't get it out of my head. I decided I was going to pay more attention and watch for any clues to help me determine if my suspicions were correct, starting tonight at dinner. I felt silly doing it, but I got a little extra dolled up for dinner before heading down. I sat at the table swirling my pasta, staring at the empty chair Blake should have been in. Disappointment washed over me as the realization finally hit that he would not be coming down for dinner. Hey, can we talk? Noah asked seemingly out of nowhere. Sure, I replied, although I really wasn't in the mood. He went and grabbed the super soft blanket from the other night before leading the way out to the front door. As we sat on the porch swing, he spread the blanket across us. A cool breeze caused my skin to prickle, and I was thankful for the blanket. As I glanced up, I noticed just how clear the sky was out here. The stars looked brighter than they did back home, and I stared in awe as they danced and twinkled. Beautiful, Noah said under his breath. What? The stars on a clear night are absolutely beautiful out here. You are as well. I'm sure he had caught the brief look of shock that flashed across my face based on his next remark. Please don't take that as me hitting on you. I actually brought you out here because it's obvious something is up. Do you want to talk about what's bothering you? I'm assuming it has something to do with our guest who was not present at dinner. I reluctantly nodded. I hadn't planned on divulging anything to Noah, but the gentleness in his approach and the understanding he seemed to exude made it feel as though it were safe to tell him, the basics anyway. As I told him the overall situation, without going into much detail, he listened intently. When I was finished, he jokingly teased me about being blind to Blake's feelings for me. He let out a laugh. I saw it the moment you arrived. I actually thought you two were a couple at first. I sighed. Was he right? Were Blake's feelings for me an obvious truth that had been dangling right in front of me, which I had completely missed? Or was it possible that something else was up, and we were all misreading the situation? Noah and I sat out there talking about it for quite a while. We finally came to the consensus that I just needed to talk to Blake. It was getting late, so I thanked him for the talk and headed up to go to bed. Noah's words kept ringing in my head as scenes from the last couple of days played out. I saw it the moment you arrived. I actually thought you two were a couple at first. Echoed through my mind. Chapter 12. As I passed by Blake's door on the way to my room, I stopped and thought about knocking. However, decided it would probably be best to just let him cool down for the night and reevaluate the situation in the morning. Once in bed, thoughts swirled in my head as I experienced a whirlwind of mixed emotions. Hours had gone by since everything in the house had fallen silent. I glanced at the clock. It was already 1 a.m. Just then, footsteps approached my door. Either whatever it was that had been outside my door the last 2 nights was early, Or it was one of the guys. When it lingered just outside the door, chills washed over me. Then, just like in a bad dream, I opened my mouth to scream at what appeared in front of me, but no sound came out. There she was, the girl with the wavy brown hair, Millie. She stood staring at me intently while pointing out the window. "Look now. You have to see to protect yourself," she said before vanishing. Fear grasped me, and I stayed motionlessly staring at the spot where she had been standing. I was broken from my trance, hearing a strange noise outside. I mustered up all of my courage and tiptoed to the window. I blinked to make sure my eyes were not playing tricks on me, but, sure enough, there was a guy dressed in all black, heading towards the house. He was coming from the direction of the wooded hiking trails that led out past the garden. I gulped as I watched him walk up to the back door. I stayed hidden behind the curtain, in an attempt to avoid being seen. However, it made it impossible to see his face. I could hear footsteps coming up the stairs, just as I made it back into my bed. I pulled the covers over my head, pretending to be asleep, and I prayed whoever it was didn't enter my room. As the footsteps drew nearer, I listened intently. My breath caught when they stopped just outside my door. "You're just in my head. Go away," I heard a voice growl under his breath, yet couldn't quite make out who had said it. I finally was able to let out a sigh of relief as the footsteps grew further away once again. It was hours before I began to doze off. In fact, the first rays of morning light were beginning to tease across the room as I did. About an hour later, I heard people moving around the house. I decided to chalk getting sleep up as a failure and get ready for the day. I had a mission to accomplish today. I needed to look good doing it. As I headed downstairs, I could smell the aromas of breakfast. It smelled delicious. I assumed Noah was at it again. He seemed to have a way in the kitchen. Just as I was passing the front door, I jumped at the sound of a loud pounding knock. "Can someone get that? I'll be right there," I heard Noah call out. Just as I reached for the door handle, Blake reached around me while giving me a nod to let me know he wanted me to stand behind him. I wasn't sure what was up, so I did without questioning. My jaw dropped as he opened the door to reveal 2 police officers. "We are looking for Noah. We have a few questions for him." Just then, Noah walked up and stepped out onto the porch with them. "Can you tell us when the last time was that you saw your neighbor, Miss Mason?" "Yeah, yesterday morning. I helped Bernice, her dog, deliver her puppies." "And after that?" "And after, she took them home." "Did you see her again after that?" "No. I'm sorry, what is this about?" "Her husband reported her missing this morning. When he arrived home from work yesterday evening, she was nowhere to be found. It seems that you were the last to have seen her." There was a moment of silence before the officer began to speak again. "You know what this is falling near the anniversary of?" "Yes." "Then as much as I hate to do this, I'm sure you can understand why it needs to be done. We are going to need to take you down to the station for some questioning." "Yes, I understand." "Okay, why don't you go grab your shoes and a coat?" With that, Noah reappeared with a stoic expression plastered on his face. "Noah?" I questioned. "Don't worry. It's just routine. They're just doing their job. Everything will be fine. I'll see you in a little bit," he said, giving me a pat on the shoulder before continuing to put on his shoes. Blake shot me a strange look before turning back to watch Noah be taken away. I didn't know what to think. My mind immediately darted back to when I had found Noah in the shed with all that blood. Had I been wrong about him all along? I was usually an excellent judge of character. I couldn't believe that there was even a possibility that I could have been so wrong. I mean, if that were the case, that meant we had been staying under the same roof as a potential murderer. Just then, Ben came up from behind us. There's no way he did it. Noah seems like a good guy. Even the few people I talked to in town seemed to think so as well. Ben was right. Something felt off. Hearing the back door clink shut, we went to see what it was. My eyes were immediately drawn to the dirt on the bottom of Nick's boots. I couldn't help but stare as Ben told him what had just had transpired with Noah and the police. It was almost chilling, as Nick's face remained void of any emotion. "Well, although disappointed, I can't say that I'm surprised." "I was surprised when they didn't arrest him after Millie went missing last year, however." What an odd and heartless thing to say. Nick really was kind of an ass. "And as for you, you seem to be getting pretty close to him the last couple of days, despite the fact that I tried to warn you about him. Consider yourself lucky that wasn't you getting killed and raped out there yesterday," he said, looking down at me with a menacing look. I took a step back, wide-eyed. Who had said the neighbor had been raped and killed? She hadn't even been found yet. Wait a second. Hadn't he said he hadn't been aware that Millie had gone missing? Now he was saying that he had been surprised that his cousin hadn't been arrested for it? I'm just saying, you should watch your back. He continued. I nodded. Okay, will do. Thanks. I replied, pretending to be thankful for the advice. As I turned to walk away, the dirt on his shoes caught my eye once again, and I remembered what I had seen last night from my window. Was Nick the guy in all black? Or had it really been Noah? I had no idea what to think, but shuddered at the realization that the woods most likely held the clues as to if we in fact had a cold-blooded murderer among us. Alright guys, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for tuning in, and tune in next time for more Once Upon a Fall.